Today, we're going to talk about a famous physician, Galen, and the practice of ancient medicine going back to 3000 BCE. An old practice coming from the Egyptian physicians were to copy and preserve the works of these ancient books from old doctors. This tradition comes from a document known as the Surgical Papyrus, or the Edmund Surgical Papyrus. Doctors and physicians in history were very important figures and were known to be kept close to royalty as their personal surgical physicians. A pharaoh of Egypt known as Darius was suffering from a dislocated ankle and fired his personal physician, and he hired for the first time a Greek physician. This Greek physician was known as Demosthenes. This is when the Greek medicine took over the world, leading all the way up into the 19th century. This is thanks to Hippocrates, who left a written record known as the Hippocratic Corpus. He used more rational thinking and took the spiritual essence out of the practice of healing. The teachings of Hippocrates would go on for the next 2,000 years. Hippocrates had sons and followers, and they started the first medical school in antiquity. The next rival school to compete with him didn't come till Alexander the Great. A 300-year range of Greek rulers produced a line of kings known as the Ptolemies. They were great known physicians and practiced in the field of autopsy. During the time of phenomenal medical knowledge, a great doctor is born in the name of Galen in 130 AD. He is born in Pergamon, a Greek city that resided in the area of Turkey today. Galen had a strange childhood. He wrote a book called Infectious Bites, which he did from the study of the bites that his mother gave to servants as she was a little cuckoo. But his father Nikon and him had a great relationship. Nikon was an architect and he was well respected. Galen's father encouraged him to be a doctor and he did a fine job. When Galen was young, he was studying from doctors in his own town and neighboring cities. So one day, Galen went to Rome and showed off in an audition to get a job working as the physician for the gladiators. Galen was known for boasting and bragging and going after other physicians of the time and letting them know that his knowledge was better. And he did this in a public demonstration eviscerating a live ape. That means cutting him out, taking his intestines out, and he challenged the other doctors to put them back in, which they could not do. So Galen put the intestines back into the ape, sewed him up, and he lived. Without a doubt earning the lead job at this position, in his first year, he only lost 2 patients. That is amazing for antiquity. His patients referred to him as the Wonder Boy or the Miracle Man. He was also dubbed Prince of Medicine. His experience mainly came from working on live animals, and he gained a lot of knowledge learning that pigs were just like humans. He is known to work on more animals than anyone in history. Not only did he outcompete other doctors because of his knowledge, he is also well-traveled and has many different medicines and knowledge of many different ways of treatment. He had things that other doctors had never come across. Also, at the time, doctors were very shady and self-proclaimed. Galen had a method for picking apart these doctors, which he taught to local citizens. One of his main points was to ask a doctor if they knew Hippocrates. He also had a series of 4 questions for patients to ask doctors to determine if they were false or not. These questions were: in what books did Hippocrates discuss certain diseases? What are the diagnostic values of the pulse, stool, urine, and tongue? And did they know the 4 humors? The 4 humors works in a way that stems from the 4 elements of earth: air, earth, fire, water. These qualities can be hot and dry like fire, hot and wet like air, wet and cold and dry. Here is how that relates to the 4 humors. Hot and wet is like blood. Dry and cold was considered black bile. Wet and cold was like phlegm. And yellow bile is hot and dry. This is all coming from observing patients and their symptoms at the time. He was very great at observing and documenting. A lot of doctors would disagree about the 4 humor system and say it doesn't work. I would disagree on that, considering they did make a lot of progress in science back then. They did heal many patients, and as of Galen not losing 2 patients in his first year, I think that speaks for itself. Also, the balance of these humors still go with modern science today. This also gave birth to the Hippocratic Oath, which doctors still swear by today to not harm any patients. Now, after Galen made a bunch of rivals back home, calling out all of his other neighboring doctors, in 176, Galen returned to Rome, bringing his enormous library with him. He sought to become the personal physician of Marcus Aurelius, which he accomplished very quickly and is most known for, in my opinion, especially considering that Marcus was known to be one of the fairest kings of all time. Marcus was raised studying in philosophy as young as the age of 11. He was made emperor in 161 and claimed the title Caesar. Marcus died in 180 AD and continued to work for the next two emperors. He was mainly working with the Senate, and he spent a lot of time around bookshops. In one recorded incident in a bookshop, he overheard two people arguing over his works about which ones were authentic. So Galen decided to write a book about which one of his works were genuine and which one of his works were spontaneous. We have an astonishing 22 works of Galen preserved from his time. We can thank physicians that came just a century later that preserved his works for generations to come. We can thank a doctor named Orivatius, a friend of Julian the Apostate. Orivatius often collected, studied, and preserved Galen's works. Like I said, it was standard for doctors to study Galen and Hippocrates all the way up into the 19th century. This is when Kuhn published the 22 works of Galen, and Pasteur then updated Galen's model, creating the germ theory in 1862. Since then, Galen's work, as popular as he is, has been little studied. This is a shame, and hopefully physicians today start to learn about Galen's books and translating them and gaining the knowledge that we need, for the cure for cancer could be in there for all we know. He also did a lot of work on diabetes, and we should really be researching this. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Comment below, like and subscribe. You're on the TheDnaz channel. We'll see you next time.